The Bible and it's particularly, all throughout scriptures, they did not shy away from the brutality of humanity. Yeah. They did not shy away from the ugliest things of humanity. And when they write about them, they are sometimes writing about them as a factual statement, just like the Psalms are full of things like, I hope my enemies die and their teeth disintegrate and I want to put my sword through them. And it's like, no, you don't go and pray that over your friends. It's just, he was being real, transparent. Sometimes what we're scared of, I think, in a like polished Christian tradition, is getting to the ugliness, the brutality, and what's so stunning about Scripture when you realise it's actually not boring in any way, shape, or form. They are portraying, and like I've said many times before, there is no functional family in the Bible. That's right. And when you look at the stories of Noah and Abraham and David, we are shown their abysmal flaws and their mistakes and the consequences of things, and it's put before us, and it's so awkward.
And that's, I think, a really good evidence for those who question, whether the early church actually tried to create something to support their belief system, because in that there's a lot to actually almost like to discredit it all, if they were going to sort of tidy it all up. But here we have, warts and all, actually a book of 66 books that they put together, and I just think, well, there's no hiding from rawness of humanity.
Well, it's like Jesus ascended. It's like, some still didn't believe.
Yeah.
You're like, why would you write that? It's a really weird thing to write if you're trying to paint the next superhero. But I think, like you said, I think by simplifying it and reducing it down to this was made really clean and the children's stories.
Clean.
We don't
at the end.
Yeah, we don't allow the wrestle.
Yeah.
And we should be wrestling.
Yeah.
We should be wrestling with the brutality of humanity. We should be wrestling with the tribalism that is present then and present now. We should be wrestling with the mystery of, like, who is God? Like, who is God? It's like, no, he's this. I'm like, really? You're thinking that everyone is getting a shard of, no, you can't see my face and live. Like, that's who we're trying to...
Or in the Moses story, which is similar, when it's like, who should I say sent me?
Yeah.
It's like, why do you need my name?
Yes. And you're like...
Because it would be helpful?
Yeah. Even in those stories...
For clarity?
The humility, like the understanding in our stories that we have this holy book that is trying to define an indefinable God.
Yeah.
So if we can live with that tension, we're good. As soon as we're like, this defines God, and I need to know everything, you're like, we've lost. I think we've genuinely lost the battle to be like, this defines everything. Like, okay.
But this, I think that brings us really well back to the tension between clarity and frameworks.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I think Bible Project and you said something similar, but they say the Bible is a unified story that leads us to Jesus. Yeah. That for me is I'm looking at meta-narratives. I'm looking at something that's a great word, a framework. And now when you are building frameworks for what you believe the Scripture is trying to be, it allows for within that questions, tension.
I like the phrase, that the Old Testament is Jesus concealed and the New Testament is Jesus revealed. And I think when you look at the Old Testament then through that, you can actually ask those questions of, so what's that showing me about Jesus? Jesus meeting the disciples after he had risen from the dead, he talks to them and he just said he revealed the scriptures to them, starting with Moses and the prophets. He revealed to them everything concerning himself. himself.
Yeah.
So he was able to sort of point them back to and help. And I just wish I was there.
Yeah.
I just think to myself, if only I could have heard
Like a
that.
TED talk. If it was a TED talk, we'd all be fine. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I just want to
cool.
listen in. What did he say? Because that would be the thing about this was meant to happen because, and it all just, the golden thread that goes through the Old Testament is finally fulfilled in Jesus. It's incredible.
Okay, here's a question, Hannah. Someone has never read the Old Testament.
Yep.
And they've got big questions and they are struggling with it, they're wrestling with it. What would your encouragement be to someone who's just like, I'm in Leviticus, or I'm in Ezekiel, or I'm in some other book, someone who's going to go, right, I'm going to read this.
Yeah.
What would your kind of encouragement be?
Well, my encouragement, I think, firstly, would be kind of around like doing your exegesis. Understanding the meaning behind the text, so historically, what did it mean for them at the time? Because I think there are so many scriptures that we throw around where what's the one, don't boil a goat in its mother's milk.
Yeah.
And we're all like, that's so weird. But when you... so weird. Yeah. But when you do the exegesis, or, people who have done the exegesis, kind of, they have reasons for this. They think that perhaps it was because, pagan people at the time were doing symbolic ritual things to kind of please fake gods. Yeah. And so God actually had a reason for saying that. He was saying, don't engage in the symbolic stuff. You're not going to please me with symbolic, weird boiling of animals. That's not what I want from you. So there's a lot of interesting scriptures that when you really, really look into, there is meaning behind. And that's not to say we understand every single scripture and, if you do enough work, you're going to get it. Yeah. Not saying that, but I that would be my first encouragement, that do your studies.
I think that's a really interesting point, because what you're essentially saying is you need help.
Yes, that's a good way of saying it.
Reading this.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And I would 100%.
Of course.
I have, there's reading this just as is, and then there are commentaries and study Bibles.
In the world, isn't it?
There is so much help and a broad spectrum of beliefs and writers, so you don't have to go at this just alone.
But the Bible study aids, there's just countless, isn't there? And it's about really working out ones that really work for you and so on. And that's why I really like the sort of the devotional aspect of how I grew up, sort of wrestling with the Bible, is by taking verses and then getting that explanation through sort of devotional books. And now if you went online, you're trying to sort of get a sort of Bible devotionals, just like thousands of options, one a day, or go through the Bible in a year, or things like that. And there's lots, and I like that. I mean, in terms of the opportunities we've got to actually grapple with things more than ever before in our generation, which is great.
You mentioned the Bible Project. I find that very helpful with getting a bit of context for certain things. So I was reading, where is it where it says, if there's no vision, my people perish. And so the way that was framed to me up until this point was about, if I don't have a vision for myself, I'm going to die. But actually, when you look back in how that's...
What hard guideline to your life.
When you look back at how that story was formed and the context, you're like, oh, okay, it's not actually about me, really. So I think, getting the aid and the help, I think the Bible Project is quite cool.